This bill is a very worthy one, a highly worthy bill, because ultimately what it's about is providing better for the welfare of children and families. And it does that by amending the Domestic Violence Act 1995, the Care of Children Act 2004 and the Adoption Act 1955. And perhaps unlike other speakers throughout the first, second readings and in this committee stages, I really want to focus on that last Act, the Adoption Act 1955, and the amendments that we are making there. And I want to suggest that they're very important ones, and I'll do that shortly. But the Bill's digest, really in quite banal terms, talks about how what we're doing with the Adoption Act amendments is we're dealing with an increase in the international movement of children for adoption purposes. Current powers are inadequate to deal with the modern-day international movement of children for adoption purposes. New provisions are required to fulfil New Zealand's commitment to protecting the welfare and best interests of children and to make it easier to prosecute offences relating to inter-country adoptions. And effectively, and I agree with it, I think it's excellent what we're doing. We're making sure we're complying with the optional protocol to the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child on the sale of children, child prostitution and child pornography. And that gets closer to what this is about. This is not something that's banal. It's banal perhaps in the frequency of it and how common it is, sadly, in the world we live in. But I want to suggest that actually what we're dealing with here and where we're living up to our international obligations, we're dealing with perhaps the era that we live in, the most pervasive human rights violation that is happening in the moment. And it's the oppression really of children and women worldwide into sex trafficking, into forced prostitution, into gender-based violence, genital mutilation and the like, into killings of children and women simply on the basis of their sex, stonings, and we're not just talking small numbers, we're talking many millions of women and children every year, and we're talking billions and billions of dollars every year when we talk about sex trafficking. So this is a very important issue indeed, in my view. And as I say, we could look back at the history of slavery worldwide. We go to what William Wilberforce did 2-3 centuries back, and of course we could say, well, that was great. He through a crusade, effectively, towards the end of his life, ultimately won and saw modern slavery, or saw slavery, I should say, of black people ended, at least in Britain. But actually, today, in the world we live in, the slavery of children and women continues and persists at a very, as I say, pervasive level involving millions and millions of children and women. And really one of the things that's influencing my thinking a lot is a book I'm reading at the moment called Half the Sky by Nick Kristof and Cheryl Wu Dunn, Pulitzer Prize winners on this issue and on the sex trafficking, the forced prostitution, gender-based violence and so on. And they absolutely make the case that this is terrible. But they, and I haven't, I must admit, read to the end, but I can tell from where it's going. They push through on a theme that actually international action and condemnation at an international level of this sort of thing can work, that we can make a difference. We have to be absolutely careful how we do that. A US senator pushed through a bill in the United States of America to ensure that child labour laws were toughened up around the world. And what America did, toughen things up. But in doing so, actually what he did was he saw that go down, but an increase in child sexual slavery absolutely increase as the children went out of the the clothes shops and into the sex shops, and we wouldn't want to see that happen.
Call Jacinda Ardern.